It was a quiet night in the small town of Fairville. The sky was clear, the stars were shining, and the wind was soft. People were sleeping in their homes. Nothing strange had happened in months, but above the earth, something was falling fast. It looked like a green light, moving across the sky like a comet. Many people saw it and thought it was just a shooting star. They smiled, made wishes, and went back to bed. But Daniel, a farmer who lived near the forest, kept looking. He knew this wasn't a normal star. It was too bright, too close, and it wasn't disappearing. The light hit the ground far away, deep in the forest. There was no sound at first, just a strange glow that lit up the trees. Then, after a few seconds, the ground shook. A soft boom echoed across the hills. Birds flew out of the trees in panic. Dogs began barking in the town. Daniel stood outside his farmhouse, staring at the forest. He didn't know what it was, but he felt something was wrong. Something inside him told him to go check. He took his flashlight and his dog, Max, and walked toward the woods. The air smelled different, like something burned. As he got closer, he saw a thin black smoke rising from the trees. The light was still glowing, green and strange, like it didn't belong on Earth. Max stopped walking and growled. He didn't want to go further. Daniel told him to stay and walked ahead alone. He reached the place after 20 minutes of walking. What he saw made him stop and stare. A round object, black and cracked, was sitting in a hole in the ground. It looked like a pod, like something made from metal, but it was not human-made. Around it, a strange black dust was slowly floating in the air. It sparkled like tiny stars. The trees nearby were turning gray, like they were dying. But the dust wasn't hot. It wasn't cold either. It moved slowly, touching everything, and then disappearing into the air. Daniel felt dizzy. He sat down and looked at his hands. They were shaking. The dust was touching his skin, but it didn't burn. It felt like wind. He didn't stay long. He took a small rock covered in the dust, put it in his bag, and went home. By morning, the forest had changed. The birds had stopped singing. Some trees were completely black, and the animals were acting strange. A group of deer ran into the town and attacked a parked car. Squirrels were chewing on metal. Cats and dogs were barking at nothing. Something was wrong with nature. Daniel woke up feeling different. His body felt light, full of energy. He went to lift a heavy bag of seeds and picked it up like it weighed nothing. He didn't understand what was happening. He looked at himself in the mirror. His eyes looked sharper. His skin looked stronger. He felt like he could run for hours without getting tired. He told his neighbor, an old man named Rick, what he saw. Rick didn't believe him at first, but when Daniel lifted Rick's tractor with one hand, the old man fell silent. "It's the dust," Daniel said. "It's done something to me." News started to spread fast. A strange object had fallen in Canada. The government sent soldiers to block the area. Scientists came in helicopters. They wore suits and masks and started taking samples. But they were too late. The dust had already spread into the air. It moved with the wind. In small amounts, it was harmless. But if you stood near it long enough, it changed you. The animals were the first to change. A bear was found with glowing eyes and sharp bones growing from its back. A pack of wolves had turned wild and started hunting people. Fish in the lakes were growing extra fins and swimming faster than boats. Forests became dangerous. People were told to stay inside. But then, the government noticed something strange. Some humans who had been close to the dust didn't die or get sick. They got stronger, smarter, faster. Not everyone, only a few. But the ones who did, they were changing fast. Their muscles grew. Their eyesight became perfect. They could hear things from far away. It was like they were becoming more than human. Daniel became the first known case. The media called him the awakened farmer. Scientists took him in for tests. They checked his blood, his skin, his brain. Everything was changing inside him. But he was still Daniel. Still human, but stronger. The news spread around the world. Some people were afraid. Others were excited. Many people tried to reach the crash site, hoping to become strong like Daniel. The government closed the area and made it illegal to go near. Soon, other awakened humans appeared in different places. A woman in Alaska could run faster than a car. A boy in India could lift a tree. A teacher in Brazil could see in the dark. It became clear the virus from the sky was not killing humans, it was upgrading them. But not everyone was lucky. Some people who touched the dust died in minutes. Others went crazy and attacked their families. It was a risk. No one knew who would survive the change and who wouldn't. Back in Ferial, Daniel stayed in his home. He didn't want to become a hero, but people started coming to him for help. His strength made him a protector. Wild animals were attacking farms, and Daniel fought them off. He saved people from mutated wolves and carried injured neighbors to safety. People started trusting him. They brought food, supplies, and asked for protection. His farm became a safe place. But something else was happening. Something no one saw. Far above Earth, in the cold dark of space, a ship watched everything. Its metal eyes had seen the dust fall, had watched the virus spread. The virus was not an accident. It was a gift, a test, a message. The ship had sent the virus, not to destroy, but to observe, to see what kind of creatures lived on Earth, to find out if they were strong enough. If they survived, the ship would come closer. If they failed, the ship would leave, and maybe return later when Earth had changed again. Deep inside the ship, something began to move. A second pod was prepared. Another package was ready. Phase 2 was starting. Daniel had no idea what was coming. He only knew that something had changed the world, and he wasn't sure if it was a blessing or a warning. That night, as he looked at the stars, he felt something deep inside him. A pull, a sense of danger. The kind you feel before a storm. He looked toward the forest where it all began. The trees were quiet now, but the ground was still glowing faintly. Max sat beside him, ears up, tail still. Daniel whispered, "Whatever you are, I know you're watching. We're not afraid." But he was afraid. Not for himself. For the world. And somewhere, across the sky, something answered. As the days passed, things only got stranger. The townspeople could feel the change, but no one knew what to make of it. The air itself seemed to be different, like the earth was holding its breath, waiting for something. Daniel's farm had become a small sanctuary for those who survived the strange new world outside. The number of people who came for shelter grew each day. Families fled from the cities, bringing their children, their pets, and whatever they could carry. Some were scared, but others were hopeful. They believed that Daniel, as the first to survive the change, was their protector. Daniel never asked to be anyone's hero. He just wanted to understand what was happening to him. But every time he used his new strength, it seemed to draw more people in. They watched as he could lift heavy objects with ease, run faster than any human could, and even hear things from miles away. He didn't like the attention. It made him feel like a circus act, but it also made him realize how different things were becoming. The virus, the dust, had done something to everyone. It was making people stronger, but it also made them scared. People were changing, but not everyone was using their power for good. In the city of Toronto, reports were coming in about strange groups of people who had been exposed to the virus, but hadn't been able to control it. They weren't like Daniel. They weren't using their strength to protect others. Instead, they were using it to steal, to hurt, to dominate. One man, known as Colt, had already taken over a large part of the city. He and his followers were a new kind of army, one that didn't care about old rules or laws. Colt's army was made up of people who had been affected by the virus, but had used their new strength to take what they wanted. Colt wasn't just strong, he was smart. He understood that the virus didn't just make people powerful, it made them more focused, more driven. He used that to his advantage. His followers listened to him, respected him, and obeyed him without question. They had no fear. They saw themselves as the future of Earth. The old world was dead, they believed. They were the new rulers, and they would take over the Earth, no matter what. While Colt's army grew in power, the rest of the world watched in fear. The governments around the world were struggling to maintain control. The army and police forces were doing their best to protect the cities, but the mutant creatures that the virus had created were getting stronger too. No one was safe anymore, and no one knew if the aliens who had sent the virus were watching. No one knew what their next move would be. In Fairhill, Daniel tried to keep his small group of survivors safe. They had food and clean water, but as more and more people came, the resources started to run low. People were getting nervous. Tensions were rising. Daniel knew he couldn't stay in one place forever. He couldn't protect everyone forever. He needed to find answers. He needed to know what the virus was doing to the world, and why. One day, while Daniel was out in the woods hunting for food, he ran into a group of people who were just as confused as he was. They were a small team of scientists and soldiers who had been working together for weeks. They were led by Dr. Lena, a scientist who had been studying the virus since the first reports of the crash. She had heard about Daniel and the changes he had gone through and wanted to meet him. She believed that if they could understand what had happened to him, they could understand what was happening to the world. At first, Daniel was hesitant to trust them. He had seen too many people who had tried to take advantage of the new power, but Dr. Lena wasn't like the others. She wasn't asking for power or fame. She just wanted answers. And like Daniel, she was scared of what the virus could do if it continued to spread unchecked. "Do you know what this virus is doing to us?" she asked as they sat around a fire that evening. "We think it's a mutation, something designed to evolve the human body. But there's more to it than that. We've been able to study samples from the crash site, and we found something strange." Daniel listened carefully. "What do you mean, strange?" Dr. Lena pulled out a small device, a tablet, and showed him the images on the screen. The pictures were of cells, human cells. They were changing, multiplying, growing in ways that shouldn't have been possible. But what really shocked Daniel was what came next. The cells weren't just growing. They were changing their structure. They were becoming more organized, more intelligent. Like the virus wasn't just mutating humans, it was improving them. "It's as if it's testing us," Dr. Lena explained. "The virus isn't just making us stronger. It's making us smarter. It's turning us into something more than human." Daniel frowned. "But why? Why would it do that?" "We don't know yet," she said. "But we think the virus was sent intentionally, not by a natural disaster, but by something alive, something with a purpose." Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. He hadn't thought about it like that. He had always assumed the virus was an accident, something random, a freak of nature. But now, with the images in front of him and the feeling growing inside him, he wasn't so sure anymore. Something had been watching them. And it wasn't just interested in Earth, it was interested in humans. The conversation went on, but Daniel's mind was elsewhere. The feeling of being watched, the strange pull he had felt before, was growing stronger. He looked up at the night sky, the stars glittering above, and a thought crossed his mind. Were they coming? Were the aliens coming to take what they had started? Dr. Lena interrupted his thoughts. "We need to find the crash site. It's the key, the virus. It came from there. We need to understand why." Daniel nodded slowly. He had to go. If there was a chance to stop the chaos, to understand what was happening, he had to go. He had to find the truth. But before they could make any plans, a loud noise echoed in the distance. It was the sound of gunfire. A new army was in the area, moving fast. Colt's army. The group stood up, grabbing their weapons. Daniel could feel the tension in the air. The world was changing, and not everyone was ready to face what was coming. Colt wanted power. The virus was spreading. The animals were mutating. And the aliens? They were still out there, waiting. Daniel looked around at the people with him. They were scared, but they were strong. They were the last hope for humanity. The world was at war, against each other, against the mutants, and against whatever came next. "We're not going to let them take everything," Daniel said. "We're going to fight. Together." And with that, they began their journey toward the crash site. The truth was out there. They just had to find it before it was too late. The journey toward the crash site wasn't easy. Daniel, Dr. Lena, and the group of survivors moved through the forests and fields, staying off the main roads to avoid Colt's army and the mutated animals that roamed freely. Daniel was more focused than ever. He could feel the weight of what was happening pressing down on him. They weren't just looking for answers about the virus anymore. They were looking for something more. They were looking for a way to stop the chaos, to stop the virus before it destroyed everything. As they traveled, Daniel's powers continued to grow. His hearing had become sharper. He could hear the soft rustling of leaves, the distant movements of animals, even the quiet footsteps of people far away. His strength had increased, too. He could run faster, jump higher, and his muscles felt like they were made of steel. But despite all of his new abilities, there was something else, something that didn't feel right. He felt like something was inside him, pushing him to move faster, to act with more purpose. It was like the virus had started to take control of his mind, as well as his body. The further they went, the more Daniel realized that the world around them was changing. The trees seemed to be growing in strange shapes, their branches twisted and gnarled, like they were being affected by the virus as well. The animals were more aggressive, more dangerous. In some places, the land itself seemed to be dying, turning into a barren wasteland where nothing could grow. The world was becoming unrecognizable. They passed through a small town one evening, a place that had once been full of life. But now, it was empty. The buildings were abandoned, the streets quiet. The only signs of life were the creatures that had taken over. A pack of mutated dogs was roaming the streets, their glowing eyes scanning the area. Daniel and the group moved quickly, keeping to the shadows. They couldn't afford to get caught by the mutants or by Colt's army, who might be looking for them. After days of travel, they finally reached the crash site. It was in the middle of a dry, desolate desert. The land was cracked and burned, with strange rocks scattered across the ground. In the center of it all was the wreckage of the alien ship. It looked like nothing Daniel had ever seen before. The ship was covered in thick layers of dark metal that seemed to pulse with energy. It was enormous, larger than any building Daniel had ever seen. There was no mistaking it. This was not of Earth. Dr. Lena led the way, her eyes wide with awe and fear. She had studied everything about the virus, but this was beyond anything she could have imagined. She stood in front of the ship, her hand on her chin, as she tried to make sense of what they were seeing. "We found it," she said softly. "But this doesn't make sense. The virus came from here, yes. But this ship, it's not like anything we know. It looks like it was designed to be alive. It's breathing." Daniel didn't like the sound of that. He stepped forward, cautiously. His instincts told him that the ship was dangerous. He could feel something inside it, something watching them, waiting. He had never felt so small, so powerless, in the presence of something so ancient. Dr. Lena pulled out her tablet and began to scan the ship's surface, trying to find some way to get inside. After a few minutes, she found a small opening, a crack in the metal where the ship's outer layer had been torn away by the crash. She motioned for everyone to follow her. They crawled through the opening and into the ship. The inside was dark, the air thick with dust. The walls seemed to shimmer, like they were alive, moving in slow waves. The deeper they went, the more uneasy Daniel felt. He couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't alone. The ship was silent, but it wasn't empty. It felt like there was something, or someone, inside, watching them. They moved deeper into the heart of the ship. The walls glowed faintly as they passed, casting strange shadows on the floor. They came to a large chamber, a room that seemed to stretch on forever. In the center of the room was a massive control panel, covered in symbols and patterns that Daniel couldn't understand. The panel was glowing with an eerie blue light, and in the center of it was a crystal, pulsing with energy. "That's it," Dr. Lena whispered. "That's the source. The heart of the ship. The virus. It's inside the crystal." She stepped forward, reaching for the crystal. But as her fingers touched it, the room shook violently. The walls cracked, and the ground beneath them began to tremble. A loud, deep sound echoed from the walls of the ship, like a growl, like something waking up after a long sleep. Daniel's heart raced. He could feel it now. The ship was alive. The crystal was connected to everything. The virus, the mutations, the destruction. And then the ship spoke. Not with words, but with a voice that Daniel could hear inside his mind. It was calm, cold, and distant. It felt alien. "You have found the source, human." Daniel froze. Dr. Lena stumbled back, her eyes wide with fear. The voice came again, louder this time, stronger. "This is the beginning of your test. You have passed the first stage. You are stronger than the others. But now you will see the true purpose of the virus. It was not for survival. It was for evolution. You will be the first to understand." Daniel's mind raced. What did it mean? Why had the virus been sent? What was the purpose? And then the crystal pulsed again, and the room went dark. A sudden wave of energy surged through the ship, and Daniel felt it in his bones. He collapsed to his knees as the power washed over him. He could feel the virus inside him, moving, changing him in ways he didn't understand. "You are ready, human," the voice echoed again, cold and powerful. Suddenly, the ship began to tremble even more. The ground cracked open beneath them, and a bright light shone from the crystal, blinding them all. Daniel could barely stand. He could hear the others shouting, but he couldn't focus on them. His mind was spinning. Before he could react, the ground gave way beneath him, and he fell into darkness. Daniel awoke to silence. For a moment, he didn't know where he was. His body felt heavy, his head throbbing. He could feel the cold floor beneath him, but his mind was too foggy to understand why. Slowly, he pushed himself up, using his arms to steady himself. The room around him was dim, and he could barely see anything. The air smelled stale, like something had been forgotten for a long time. He blinked, trying to clear his vision. Slowly, the shape of the room started to come into focus. It was a chamber, metal walls, strange symbols, and dark shadows moving across the floor. It felt like a cage, but a cage that was alive. The air itself felt different here, heavy, full of power. And then he realized what was wrong. The others weren't with him. Daniel's heart skipped a beat. He stood up quickly, ignoring the pain that ran through his body. His senses were sharper now, more alert. He could hear faint breathing, almost as if something was waiting for him. He could feel the presence of something, but it was too dark to see. He reached out, his hands brushing against the cold walls of the chamber. "You are awake, human." The voice was back, cold, calm, echoing through his mind. This time, it felt closer, stronger. He looked around, his pulse quickening. The voice wasn't coming from anywhere specific. It was just there, inside his head, like a shadow that followed his every move. "Where are the others?" Daniel demanded, his voice hoarse. There was a pause, then the voice spoke again, but it was different this time. There was a sense of amusement in it. "Your companions are not important. You are the one we are interested in." Daniel's thoughts raced. What was this place? Why had he been separated from the others? And what did the ship mean by saying it was interested in him? He felt the virus inside him, pushing, tugging at him. urging him to do something, to be something more. He tried to push the feeling away. This wasn't him. This wasn't what he wanted. The room began to shift around him. The walls seemed to move, like they were breathing in time with his own heartbeat. A low hum filled the air, vibrating through his bones. The crystal, the one that had pulsed with energy before, now glowed faintly in the distance. It was like it was calling to him. He knew he had to get to it. "You will learn your true purpose soon," the voice said. "The virus will change you further. You will become something new, something stronger. You will understand the evolution we have started." Daniel clenched his fists, trying to ignore the urge to give in. He didn't want to become a tool for whatever alien intelligence had created the virus. He couldn't let it control him. But the virus inside him, it was growing. The power inside him was undeniable. It was like a fire burning within him, telling him to embrace it, to take it all. "You are stronger than you know," the voice continued. "Your body, your mind, it is all changing. We have given you the gift of evolution. You will lead the others." Daniel stepped forward, ignoring the voice, trying to stay focused. He needed answers. He needed to know what was happening to him. He reached the crystal, his hand trembling as he touched it. The moment his fingers made contact, a surge of energy shot through him. His vision blurred, and he felt as if he was being pulled into the crystal, like it was drawing him in. He gasped, trying to break free, but the energy was too strong. The virus inside him reacted, and his body surged with power. "You are ready." The words echoed in his mind, but they no longer sounded like a command. They sounded like a promise. Suddenly, the chamber lit up, brighter than Daniel had ever seen. The walls seemed to melt away, revealing a massive room, almost like a control center. There were screens everywhere, glowing with alien symbols and images that Daniel couldn't understand. In the center of the room, there was a large throne, and sitting on it was a figure, tall, dark, and humanoid, but not human. It had eyes that glowed like the crystal, and its skin shimmered like the surface of the ship. "Welcome, human," the figure said, its voice deep and ancient. "I have been waiting for you." Daniel stepped back, his heart racing. This was the source, the one who had sent the virus, the one who had been controlling everything from the beginning. "Who are you?" Daniel asked, trying to steady his breath. His voice echoed in the chamber. The figure tilted its head. "I am not important. What matters is you. You are the first human to survive the virus in its purest form. You are our new leader, the one who will guide the humans to their new evolution." Daniel shook his head. "No, I won't lead anyone. I won't be your puppet." The figure's eyes narrowed. "You misunderstand. We have not made you a puppet. We have made you the strongest version of yourself. You will lead, not because we command you, but because you are ready to lead. Your body, your mind, your very soul are now part of us." Daniel's fists clenched. He could feel the power inside him. The virus was changing him, but he was still in control. He would not let it consume him. He would fight. "I don't want to be a part of whatever you are," Daniel said, his voice firm. "I'm human. I'm not your tool. And I'll make sure no one else becomes one either." The figure stood up, its form towering over him. "You have a choice, human. You can embrace what you are becoming, or you can fight it. But know this, fighting us will only lead to your destruction. There is no way to stop the evolution. It will continue with or without your help." Daniel's body tensed, the energy inside him building. The voice in his mind, the alien voice, was pushing him, urging him to submit. But he fought against it. He would not give in. "I won't let you win," he said, gritting his teeth. "I'll stop this. I'll stop you." The figure smiled, but it wasn't a smile of kindness. It was a smile of someone who knew something Daniel didn't. "You are free to try, human, but you will fail. In the end, we all will be part of the evolution." The figure's words hung in the air like a dark promise, and Daniel knew deep in his bones, that the battle had only just begun. Daniel stood facing the alien figure, his heart pounding in his chest. The words it spoke echoed in his mind, but they didn't feel true. It wanted him to believe that he was powerless, that he was just another part of its plan. But he refused to accept that. He wasn't going to give in to whatever it was trying to turn him into. The figure stepped forward, its glowing eyes never leaving Daniel. The air between them was thick with tension. Daniel could feel the virus inside him, the energy coursing through his body, urging him to embrace it, to let it take over. But he fought it. He focused on the feeling of his own heartbeat, on the strength of his own mind. "I won't become one of you," Daniel said, his voice steady despite the storm of thoughts racing through his head. "I'm not your leader. I'm not your weapon." The alien figure tilted its head, its expression unreadable. "You are already what you fear. You are already part of the evolution." Daniel clenched his fists, feeling the surge of power in his muscles, but he didn't let it control him. "No, I'm still human. I will always be human." The figure laughed, a sound that was more chilling than comforting. "Human," it repeated. "You are something more now. You don't realize it yet, but you will. You will lead your people. The evolution is unstoppable. It has begun, and there is no turning back." Daniel didn't flinch. He stepped forward, his feet firm on the ground beneath him. "If this evolution is so unstoppable, then why are you trying to control me? If we were meant to become like you, we wouldn't need you to lead us." The alien's smile faded, replaced by a flicker of something like anger. "You misunderstand. The virus wasn't meant to control you. It was meant to prepare you. The final choice is yours, Daniel. You can join us, or you can fight. But know this: if you fight us, you will lose." Daniel's mind raced. The power inside him was stronger than anything he had ever felt before. The virus had changed him, but it had also made him more aware, more focused. He had been given a choice, whether he realized it or not. The alien wanted him to give in, to accept its version of the future, but Daniel wasn't ready to let go of who he was. He wasn't ready to become part of an alien plan. "I'm not going to let you destroy humanity," Daniel said, his voice low but full of determination. The alien figure's expression hardened. "You cannot stop what has already begun. The virus will continue to spread, and your people will either evolve or die. The choice will be theirs, but only if they can survive long enough." Daniel felt a surge of power within him, stronger than before. It was as if the virus was listening to him, waiting for him to give the command. He could feel the power building, but this time, he wasn't afraid of it. He knew what he had to do. With a deep breath, Daniel pushed the energy inside him to the surface. The walls of the chamber cracked, the ship groaning as if it, too, felt the force of his will. The alien figure stepped back, clearly surprised by Daniel's sudden burst of power. "You are stronger than I expected," the alien said, its voice tinged with something like curiosity. "But it is too late, human. You cannot stop the evolution." Daniel didn't answer. He didn't need to. He had already made his choice. With a roar, he released the full force of the virus within him. The ship shook, the crystal at the center of the room glowing brighter than ever. The energy surged through the walls, through the floor, through everything, as if the entire ship was alive. The alien figure tried to move, but it was too late. Daniel's mind was clear now. The virus, the power, the alien presence, it was all part of him, and he could control it. He could feel the ship responding to him, the virus pushing him forward. He wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. He was fighting for the future of humanity. The walls of the ship began to break apart, the alien figure's form flickering as if it were being torn apart by the force Daniel was unleashing. The crystal pulsed one last time, sending out a wave of energy that filled the entire chamber. The figure let out a cry, its voice filled with rage and disbelief. "You will not win, Daniel," it shouted, but its words were lost in the storm of energy that surrounded them. Daniel's eyes locked onto the alien's glowing form. With a final push, he focused all of his strength on the crystal at the center of the room. He could feel the ship's power rushing toward him. But this time, he was in control. The virus inside him had awakened something deeper, something more powerful than he had ever imagined. He channeled it into one final burst of energy. The ship shook violently, the alien figure disintegrating into dust as the crystal shattered. A loud, deafening explosion filled the chamber, and for a moment, everything went dark. When Daniel opened his eyes, the room was silent. The ship was gone, its once glowing walls now lifeless. The energy that had filled the room was gone, leaving only the stillness behind. He stood alone in the wreckage, the power inside him still buzzing beneath his skin. But now, it felt different. He had won. The alien's control over the virus had been broken. The evolution had been stopped, at least for now. But Daniel knew that the world had changed forever. The virus had spread. People had been altered. Some had embraced the change, while others fought it. The future of humanity was uncertain. There would be more battles, more struggles. But Daniel was ready. He would help lead them. He would make sure they didn't lose themselves in the power that the virus offered. He looked up at the sky, the stars shining above him. The world was still broken, but it wasn't beyond hope. There was still a chance to rebuild, to fight back against the forces that sought to control them. And he would fight. For the future, for humanity.